Hi everyone, welcome back. Thank you for joining us. Today, we have a brand new story to share. So, let's get started. The night began like any other, predictably bad, weighed down by pain and anger. But then, things took a turn for the worse. Or maybe it was for the better. I guess that depended on how deeply the anger gnawed at me. And trust me, there was plenty of it. It was around 10 p.m., and I was sitting alone in the dimly lit living room, focused on my work. The soft light from the floor lamp beside my chair was the only source of illumination, casting long shadows across the room that seemed to mirror the darkness inside me. The house was quiet, as dark as the mood I carried, and the distance between me and the rest of the world felt infinite. I was hunched over a yellow notepad, jotting down notes, making lists when the doorbell rang. It startled me, pulling me out of my thoughts. For a moment, I didn't even recognize the silence around me. Who could that be at this hour? I thought. I was sure it wasn't my wife, Jean. She hadn't come home this early from her girls' nights out in months. I dropped the pen, letting it fall onto the notepad, and stood up. That's when I realized just how tired I was, not from work, but from the heavy weight of a life that had drained me completely. I walked toward the door, flipping the switches for the outdoor and hallway lights. A quick glance through the peephole confirmed my suspicion. 2 police officers stood on my doorstep. That never boded well. I took a deep breath, opened the door, and forced a smile. "What have I done this time?" I asked. The officers didn't smile. This wasn't a friendly visit. "Are you George Bradley?" one of them asked. "Yes," I answered, trying to stay composed. "Is your wife Jean Bradley?" he continued. "You're right about that," I replied, feeling a bit uneasy. "May we come in?" the officer asked. I didn't answer right away. Something about their demeanor made me uneasy. I crossed my arms and blocked the doorway. "No. I asked you a question first. What is this about?" The officer looked surprised, clearly not used to being questioned. After a long pause, he stepped back, but his partner didn't seem ready to back down. They exchanged glances, and then the senior officer spoke. "Your wife has been injured and is at Memorial Hospital. She's in surgery. The outcome is unclear." The words hit me harder than I expected, and I felt the ground shift beneath me. My breath caught in my throat as I tried to process what he had just said. The officer's eyes remained fixed on mine, waiting for my reaction. "Wait," I finally managed to say. "You said she was taken there. You never clarified if she's alive or dead. So, answer the question." The silence between us grew heavier. Then, almost as if they were trying to gauge my reaction, they spoke again. "Your wife was in a motel room with another man," the officer explained. "His wife showed up and shot both of them. The man is dead. Your wife? She might survive, but it's touch and go." I wasn't sure if I should feel relief or something darker. Maybe both. Part of me wanted to scream at the injustice of it all, but another part of me just went numb. "Is that why you're here?" I asked, my voice shaky but steady. "To see if I'm involved?" They exchanged looks again, their expressions unreadable. The senior officer spoke as if reciting something rehearsed. "We know who did the shooting, but we need to ask questions. We need to ensure your wife's safety when she's well enough to return home." I blinked. The absurdity of it hit me, and a smile tugged at the corners of my mouth. "You think I'm some kind of threat to her now?" I chuckled darkly. "She's been perfectly safe these past few weeks. Don't see why that should change now." The officers looked at each other, unsure how to interpret my response. But then, without another word, I gave them something I had been sitting on for the past few days. I reached down beside my chair, and both officers stiffened. The younger one even put his hand near his holster, but I wasn't holding a weapon, just a thick envelope. I handed it to the senior officer. "I met with my lawyer today," I said, my voice cold. "She gave me a list of things to handle, told me to make a few more lists of my own." The officer opened the envelope and began flipping through the photos inside. There was Jean, my wife, in a hotel room, tangled up with a man I had never seen before. His face was unfamiliar to me, but the pictures spoke for themselves. The senior officer glanced at the photos, then looked at me, his face unreadable. "You seem to already know who this man is," he said. "Care to tell me his name?" The junior officer, still processing the photos, muttered, "Wow, they really do look different without holes in them." The senior officer immediately reprimanded him. Then, turning back to me, the senior officer said, "Sorry about that, sir. He's new. I'll make sure he learns to keep his comments in check." I nodded, unfazed. This wasn't the first time someone had said something inappropriate in my presence, and it certainly wouldn't be the last. As the officers finally prepared to leave, I stood up and walked them to the door. I turned off the lights, walked back to my chair, and sat down again. This time, I let everything sink in. My wife had been shot. I hadn't expected that. No matter how much I hated her for what she'd done, I never wished for her to die. What I wanted was for her to suffer, regret, cry alone at night, face the consequences of her actions. But not this. Not like this. I had started the evening with a task in mind, working on things my lawyer had asked me to handle, using it as a distraction from the questions that had been haunting me ever since I discovered Jean's infidelity. Now, I knew who she had been with. But the bigger question remained. Why? The marriage had been rocky, sure. Jean was one of those people who always seemed dissatisfied. It was like she went out of her way to find reasons to be unhappy, but that still didn't explain what had led her to ruin everything, to drag me into this mess, to make me a suspect in a murder investigation. As the pieces began to fall into place, I realized I wasn't alone in this. My lawyer had told me to make lists, and now, more than ever, I could see how much of my life had already been listed out in ways I never imagined. I grabbed my phone and dialed my lawyer's number. She picked up on the fourth ring. "Listen, this better be important or, my God, I'll send you a bill that'll be paid with your Social Security checks." Sheila Goldstein's voice crackled over the line. As sharp as ever, I had to admit, her no-nonsense, take-no-prisoners attitude always gave me a strange sense of comfort. Who would have thought a divorce attorney could still have a sense of humor? Who said I was joking? I shot back. "I need you to contact a criminal defense attorney working tonight." I heard a brief crackle. "Tell me you didn't do something stupid." "No, someone else did." I exhaled sharply. "The cops just left my house. That bastard's wife caught up with them and shot both of them. He's dead, and she's in surgery. I'm betting she doesn't have an attorney." There was a long silence on the other end. "Listen to me. Tell me you had nothing to do with this. And say it like you mean it." "I had nothing to do with it," I answered firmly. "Now say it like I'm supposed to believe you." "I'm telling you the truth. I had nothing to do with this. The cops were here and they told me everything. They were wondering the same thing you are, but I had no involvement." "All right. So, why is this your problem?" "It's not," I said, though my mind was still racing. "But misery loves company. If we hadn't talked at the office about keeping cool, this could have been me. I just want to help her." She sighed heavily. "Fine. Do you know where she is? Do you mean Helen Smith? Did your wife have sex with another woman's husband?" "Yes, I mean Helen Smith. I don't know where she is, but the shooting happened in town. It's a small place, so I assume she's at the police station." "All right, stay put. I'll call a colleague and see if he can get over there. At the very least, he can sit with her until she finds an attorney. I need to go to the hospital." "Fine, you can go to the hospital, but don't be alone with her. If anything happens, I want at least 3 meters between you and her with a minimum of 2 witnesses." "Got it." "Got it." "George, listen." Sheila's tone softened. "I know you have conflicting feelings. I'm sorry for what's happening, but you're not responsible. Everything will be fine. Do you hear me?" "Yes, ma'am," I muttered, though it felt strange coming from my lips. "Good. Now go do what you need to do. But behave yourself." I hung up the phone wondering, did I really just say yes, ma'am to her? Why did she have that effect on me? It didn't matter. She was looking out for me when I felt completely lost, giving me direction when I needed it most. I just had to make sure I didn't disappoint her. I took a shower, changed clothes, and then headed to the hospital. A few weeks ago, I would have rushed to Jean's side, desperate to be there for her. But Jean had killed that love. Now, I had obligations. I wasn't going to tear my clothes in grief, no matter the outcome, but I'd fulfill my responsibilities. I made sure she received the medical care she needed and that the hospital got our insurance information. The divorce could wait. When I arrived at the hospital, Jean was recovering, sedated for most of the night. I provided the insurance details and spoke to the surgeon, who said she was expected to survive. They promised to contact me if anything changed or when she woke up. It was well past midnight when I got home. Exhausted but unable to sleep, I mentally drafted a to-do list. Everything could wait until morning, except for one very difficult task. I had to call Jean's parents. I picked up the phone and dialed. Hello. Do you know what time it is? Yes, Joe, I know, but I had to call. Jean is injured, and they took her to Memorial Hospital. There was a pause. Injured? What do you mean, injured? Joe. Tonight, she was shot by her lover's wife. Shot? What the hell are you talking about? Are you drunk? How did she get shot? No, Joe, I'm sober. The police were here earlier, and I've been to the hospital. She's in surgery, but the doctor says she'll be fine. They gave her a sedative, so there's no point in coming tonight. I just wanted you to know. Are you with her now? No, I'm at home. Shouldn't you be with her? I was too tired to be angry. Joe, listen. She was shot by her lover's wife. You're crazy. Jean doesn't have a lover. Yes, Joe, she does or did. He's dead, but she's going to live. Silence followed, broken only by the sound of Joe relaying the news to Mary. Then he returned to the phone. George, is there even the slightest chance you're mistaken about the affair or the shooting? No, Joe. I had my suspicions. I hired someone to keep an eye on her 2 weeks ago. I saw the photos and transcripts when the police showed up. I've been to the hospital. It's all true. Another silence. What are you going to do? I'm sorry, Joe. I've already hired a lawyer. I'm divorcing her. George, can't you find forgiveness in your heart? She's been shot and she'll need you. I wanted to, Joe. I really did, but she was having an affair, and that's it. I'll make sure she gets the help she needs. The lawyers will handle everything else. But I've been lied to too many times. That's worse than the affair itself. She lied to my face so skillfully. I never suspected a thing. Joe took a moment to process. So, what tipped you off? She was never home anymore. We used to do everything together. But in the past few months, she's been making plans that didn't include me. I decided to find out for myself. So, I hired someone to investigate. That's when I found out. After that, I made my decision. Joe's voice faltered. You know, Mary and I were looking forward to grandchildren. It hit me hard. They had wanted that, and so had I. But things had changed. I'm sorry, Joe. I really am. He sighed. Would you do us a favor? I braced myself for the typical request to hold off on the divorce until Jean was better, so we could talk. But what he said next surprised me. Don't be a stranger. Mary and I think of you as the son we never had. I don't want to lose you, even if you divorce our daughter. I couldn't believe it. After everything, the betrayal, the shooting, the lawyer, the divorce, they still cared about me. I love you guys too. I really do. I promise I won't disappear. We hung up, and I sat in silence, processing what had just happened. I was emotionally drained. I laid down on the bed, fully clothed, and fell into a deep sleep. The morning sun woke me, but I wasn't ready to get up. I closed the curtains, undressed, and crawled back into bed for a few more hours of restless sleep. When I finally dragged myself out of bed, I showered, dressed, and grabbed something to eat before heading back to the hospital. It was around 11 a.m. when I reached Jean's room. Her parents were already there. She was awake, surprisingly alert. I had expected her to still be groggy from the sedatives, but apparently, I'd underestimated her. I walked into the room, bracing for remorse. I couldn't have been more wrong. You bastard, Jean screamed. You son of a, you killed him, didn't you? You killed David. The nurses rushed in, and the orderlies quickly moved closer, sensing the tension. I looked at her completely devoid of compassion. No, I said flatly. His wife killed him. You and I were careless. Or maybe she's just smarter than I am. Her anger faltered, and she collapsed into tears. I was soon asked to leave. I did so without hesitation. Walking down the hallway, I wondered if I'd ever really known this woman. She clearly had never known me. As I reached the elevator, I was met by 2 security guards. "Sir, can we have a word with you?" one of the guards asked. "No," I replied sharply. "I've already spoken to the police, and they cleared me. I'm not letting the screams of a lying, cheating woman give you the right to pretend you have authority over me. You can call the police, and I'll talk to them, but you'll just look like fools. Your call, but if you lay a hand on me, I'll sue." They exchanged glances, unsure of what to do, and I stepped into the elevator without another word. The police didn't bother me again. Jean tried to get the authorities to press charges against me, but with the shooter repeatedly confessing on the way to the station, there wasn't much they could do. Helen Smith's lawyer managed to get her placed in a psychiatric ward instead of a jail cell. But sometimes, I wonder if there's really much of a difference. I visit her from time to time. The last time, she asked me, "Any chance you could smuggle in a hacksaw hidden in a box of chocolates?" That's when I realized she was just as sane as anyone else. The divorce was finalized without much trouble. Jean didn't want me anymore, but she wanted everything we had, and everything I would ever have. She had to settle for half and no alimony. The judge wasn't impressed by her demands. "You have a job, Mrs. Bradley," the judge had said. "You can work." I've been thinking about getting that tattooed on my arm. Looking back, what stands out most isn't the divorce or the betrayal. It's the amazing lawyer who guided me like a child, shielding me from trouble, and the wonderful relatives of my ex-wife who I still feel a strong connection to. As for Jean, I hardly think about her at all.